Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm Melinda Bogna, and I'm going to talk about my research project, Volumetric History, Epistemic Permutations of Architectural Reconstruction. The presentation is going to show an epistemic approach to planning with a more detailed look at the causalities in the digital turn. Usually, the evaluation of architectural works are missing the common ground, the shared coordinate system. Artifacts are graded in a subjective manner, thus the message can be easily lost in different understandings. In terms of reconstruction, the evaluation is even more diverse, especially if the new artifact should be considered as the copy of the original or the copy of the idea or even a new independent creation, where the third layer is always the way of perception depending on the viewer, which can turn upside down the original formula. Comparing traditional architecture with digital architectonics, a significant difference appears in the design process. While traditionally architecture aimed to design the final physical outcome, with digital tools now it's likely to design the procedure and let the outcome differ from time to time. As Mario Carpo argues, this is one of the main characteristics of digital reproduction with the same method resulting in always similar but not identical outcomes. In previous epochs, the abstraction dominated the design process. The conceptual idea only manifested visually at the construction phase. Until then, each recipient could subjectively understand the message. During the industrial era, the thoughts were mediated by drawings, which made the message more straightforward, thus the degree of abstraction decreased. While in the current digital episteme, already the concept can be visually expressed and generated, thus becomes overdetermined and calculable from the first moment. The algorithmically expressible thoughts are usually lacking the potential of human abstraction and lets the outcome to be calculable from the earliest stage of design. To structure architectural creation and to systematize artifacts based on their nature of making, Mario Carpo's ranking provides the clear structure to follow. This system resembles Michel Foucault's epistemic understanding of the world, where he distinguishes three epistemes along with their main qualities, unified with the understanding of the Kuhnian scientific revolutions. The following matrix is challenging the relationship between physical and digital in distinct phases of design, where the epistemic logic framework represents the agent's beliefs. This matrix serves as simplification, a model of the examined history. There are no singularities, only singular space-time models, which simplified models are usually created to grasp a certain phenomenon in an understandable way. Talking about history usually requires these sterile and singular models, especially in order to emphasize certain regularities and patterns. In the singular space-time model of the epistemic design matrix, each episteme operates based on different mediums of communication, which mediums have become more and more formal throughout the historical development. By the time today, we have reached to algorithmic expressions, where the definition of formal language refers to a system of signs with a set of explicit rules to generate valid combinations of symbols, formulas, syntactic rules, semantic rules. In Adverse to Singularities, the ontology of space-time singularities, Romero argues that clarity and precision are made through formalization. Thus, this paper assumes that digital design is more straightforward than an early design methods. Markov chain, usually described as Markov process, has a countable state space in either continuous or discrete time. In this process, predictions can be made regarding future outcomes based solely on its present state. And most importantly, such predictions are just as good as the ones that could be made in knowing the process's full history. This mathematical model will serve the basics of examination of the impact loop. Usually discussed that the building is an imprint of society and mirrors the zeitgeist. Architecture is imbuing a building with identity at the regional or national level and beyond. We must recognize the role of architecture played in the identification and political stabilization. Thus, as the beginning, the nation influences the building. Later, the building keeps influencing the society. Similar to jet lag, the effects of a building are shifted. Plan recognition can necessitate representing and reasoning about the potentially distinct beliefs of the observer and the actor, and in particular that the observer may be required to assume the perspective of the actor in order to effectively recognize what the actor was doing. In order to have a finite input for a model checking problem, in the semantic framework, it is necessary to use Markov chain in discrete time points. These time points are simplified as it follows. 3 design stages on the x-axis: concept, the ideas; communication, to transmit ideas; and creation, the realization of the message. Epistemes of making on the y-axis: artisanal, main feature of variability; industrial, as identical copies; and digital, marked as digital variability. Layers of time on the axis z: construction, first derivative of the idea; reconstruction, second derivative of the idea; and perception, the understanding of the message. This voxel matrix will be unfolded on the next couple of slides. In the given coordinate system, distinct variations are possible based on the phases of making. In each episteme, there is only one clear and coherent pathway to follow, along with multiple hybrid solutions based on the design approach, mixing the techniques of previous epistemes. Assuming the linear direction of the design process where concept is followed by communication and creation to order counts. These permutations are always starts with a certain concept followed by the next steps, resulting in the permutations of creation. In reconstruction, each pathway of certain is assigned to 3 ways of recreation in the given matrix, while perception, as the final extra layer, determines the understanding of the meanings in the viewer's perspective. Inspecting the xy axis of the voxel matrix, we can see on the first diagram how the most simple design flow would occur in the artisanal episteme, when the concept, communication, and creation is all made by artisanal means. For instance, thinking about a clay pot. The concept is totally mental, imagining the desired plot. Then the communication is verbal, telling to the ceramist what we want. And finally, the creation is made by hand, resulting in an always unique outcome. In this figure, the blue dots are showing all the possible outcomes of the artisanal episteme. The yellow dots are showing a certain correlation. In this case, it's only one straight workflow. And finally, the black dots are illustrating the possible recreation of the original product in our age, when we are aware of all previous production techniques along with the current possibilities. In the industrial epoch, the possible combinations of the design workflow was dramatically increased. Since in the age of opportunities, in the design thinking, communication, and creation all provided multiple possibilities. In this figure, the blue dots are showing again all the possible outcomes of the industrial episteme, which now is 6 instead of 3. The yellow dots are showing a certain original correlation during the design in the industrial age. In this case, it could result in 5 distinct workflows based on whether the used mediums were artisanal or industrial. And finally, the black dots are illustrating a possible recreation of the original product in our current age, when we are aware of all previous production techniques along with the current possibilities. This case, for instance, if we are thinking about a table made mesh on a personal idea, when communicated by technical drawings, one achievement of the industrial era, and finally assembled on an assembly line, in a factory with many identical copies. Today, this can be reconstructed with only digital means by 3D scanning the original and computationally communicating to the machine and finally 3D printing the same table. This is very simplified how epistemic reconstruction works in the industrial era. And all what has been achieved before in all the three epistemes is available in the digital epoch. Thus, the possibilities to choose from, illustrated by the blue dots, are already occupying a 3x3 grid. From this, the chosen workflow of the original creation is illustrated by the yellow dots, meaning we can create today in only 6 different simplified ways, which can still be reconstructed in many distinct ways. Imagining a hybrid workflow, when the idea is still a mental human process, the communication is made with industrial means, meaning technical drawings, but the output is digital, for instance, 3D printed. This is actually most likely the current way. How do we design switching between different mediums instead of following one clear epistemic workflow? All these applications can be seen as the epistemic logic of design, meaning that what is occurring in the design field is in strong correlation with the current episteme. Compared to traditional design methodology, in this process the result is unknown. The designer is not predicting the formal outcome and has no vision about the output, but creates a flexibility applicable set of rules. Only designing the rules and not the entire formal result, the strategy is more resilient and provides a flexible application. VFC operates based on epistemic logic, observational semantics, and agent reasons based on the present observations. And the final output still differs based on the perception, creation, then passively recreation gains their final meaning through perception, the final layer at the z-axis. Thus, the design output strongly depends on the perception. At the concept level, many AI-powered solutions would build on the available data of the past and present to recreate a digital solution. Digital communication uses models as virtual copies of existing realities, while at the construction stage, digital perception is made through projections. Now let's see some examples and applications of epistemic planning from the digital perspective, especially from the most advanced state of design in artificial intelligence. On the left, the voxel matrix illustrates the epistemic workflow of the original idea, its reconstruction, and the perception. Firstly, we see an example of the artificial concept in terms of style GAN, which operates based on the input image data and designs the output based on the pure computation. When the original creation phase was completed in the artisanal episteme based on artisanal thoughts, ideated by ideas and crafted with the unique handmaking methods, while the reconstruction following the original idea was remodeled digitally and completed industrially. Based on these memories, digital perception employing style GAN can create novel ideas. In this scenario, the connection of the creation and reconstruction is subordinate, while the relation between the reconstruction and perception is subordinate as well. Creation is the first derivative of this idea, and since reconstruction builds on the same idea with distinct toolkit, that one becomes the second derivative of the same idea. In this case, perception is not only a copy of a copy, but a new idea based on previous copies, thus co-equal with the reconstruction and creation, by being the first derivative of the original idea. Next, we see an instance of the artificial communication when something pre-existing embodies in a virtual copy, as it appears in the world of digital twins. The original creation phase was completed in the artisanal episteme, ideated by ideas and crafted by unique handmaking methods, while the reconstruction was following the same ideated idea, forwarded through engineering drawings and constructed by industrial means. This currently existing physical construction can not only be perceived offline, but also in the digital era through virtual twins. In this scenario, the connection of the creation and reconstruction is subordinate, while the realization between the reconstruction and perception is subordinate as well. Creation is the first derivative of the idea, and since reconstruction builds on the same idea with distinct toolkit, that one becomes the second derivative of the same idea. In this case, perception is literally the copy of the copy, thus the third derivative of the original idea. Digital twins, as digital replicas of the existing pairs, makes the mimesis complete through all the three episteme of making. And lastly, an example of the artificial construction. When based on digital information, the final result is experienced in augmented or virtual reality. When the original creation phase was completed in the industrial episteme based on artisanal thoughts, ideated by ideas, while the reconstruction was remodeled digitally, which digital model is perceived in an augmented construction reality. In this scenario, the connection of the creation and reconstruction is co-equal, while the relation between reconstruction and perception is assigned to each other. Creation is the first derivative of the idea, and since the whole toolkit shifts in reconstruction, that is co-equal with the creation, so it is again the first derivative of the same idea. In perception, the augmented construction site is strongly connected to the previous toolkit, which makes possible digital sensing. To sum up, volumetric history refers to a way of thinking and viewing past and present in its complexity and connectivity. No form of creation or perception is flat. All of them exist in relation to the past and present epistemes, gaining meaning by perception. This way of thinking might even enlighten the ways of reconstruction which many professionals are struggling with. Meanwhile, using our tools consciously should help to create more self-identical creations. Thank you very much for listening to me. It's been a pleasure to be here and hope you have enjoyed the presentation. I will be happy to discuss further questions later on. Thank you very much.